conference on European standardization, where our discussions will be focusing on standards advancing and deepening the single market. This event, of course, organised by ASRO, the Romanian National Standards Body, and the Ministry of Economy under the auspices of the Romanian EU Presidency, with practical support from the European Commission. My name is Jacki Davis. I will be moderating our discussions this morning, and we will have a keynote speech in a moment from our hosts. I'll introduce him shortly. Two very interactive panels, lots to discuss, and I will also be coming amongst you with the microphone for your questions and comments during both. Housekeeping notes before we get underway. Interpretation, Romanian is on channel 1 and English is on channel 2. And as I mentioned earlier, the first speech will be in Romanian, so if you need a headset and you haven't got one, they are at the back of the room. The Twitter hashtag. Should you be minded to share with the world what you are hearing in here, and we do encourage you to do so to get that message about standards out. The hashtag we you to use is Standards Connect Markets. I should warn you, ladies and gentlemen, we have a packed agenda, which means, on the downside, no coffee break. On the upside, we will finish on time. I know it's Friday and many of you have travel arrangements, so I will make sure that we do finish on time, and during the whole morning, coffee, tea, water, soft drinks are served outside in the corridor, and if you need what the Americans like to call a comfort break, there are toilets if you come out of the room and turn to your right and then left. Please do feel free to pop out should you need to do so. One last thing, I make a proposal that as it is warm in here, beautiful building, but of course older buildings have challenges. If gentlemen, ladies, you wish to take your jackets off, I'm sure we will all agree, and also to our panel, that we can be a little informal to cope with the heat. So, now, without further ado, on behalf of Nicolae Burdulo, who is the Minister of Economy of Romania, who unfortunately could not be with us today and sends his apologies, but instead we are delighted to welcome Bogdan Constantin Andronic, who is the State Secretary in the Ministry of the Economy, who is going to deliver the speech the Minister would have given. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you, State Secretary. Thank you for having us here in your wonderful city, in this wonderful building, and over to you, sir.
Good morning. Is it working? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Bună dimineața. Thank you, Ms. Davis, for the introduction. Stimate domnule Eduard Norhe, președinte ISO. Stimate domnule Deni Sturtwagen, președinte CNLEC. Stimată doamnă Neviana Nicolovski, președintele ETSI, doamnelor și domnilor. Îmi face o deosebită plăcere să fiu alături de reprezentanți importanți ai Comunității Internaționale de Standardizare la acest eveniment, unde ne bucurăm de prezența invitaților din 51 de state. În contextul președinției României la Consiliul Uniunii Europene, prioritățile Ministerului Economiei au vizat piața internă și industria. Standardizarea este fără îndoială un element cheie pentru succesul pieței interne. Actualele piețe evoluează rapid, mai ales ca urmare a dezvoltării tehnologice și a digitalizării. Adaptarea pieței interne la aceste schimbări este un obiectiv, dar și o provocare pentru standardizarea europeană. Sunt încântat că în cadrul acestei conferințe marcăm inițiativa comună în domeniul standardizării, care a fost semnată în urmă cu 3 ani la Amsterdam, în cadrul președinției olandeze a Consiliului Uniunii Europene. Iar astăzi, aici, la București, sărbătorim rezultatele acestui parteneriat, un adevărat parteneriat public-privat. Este vorba despre politicieni, autorități, operatori economici, asociații profesionale care lucrează împreună pentru a putea obține rezultatele practice ale politicilor publice. Rezultate care implică soluții complexe din punct de vedere tehnic și care reflectă cunoștințe de specialitate și experiență. Cu toții știți, mult mai bine decât mine, că vorbesc despre standarde. Mai exact, despre standarde elaborate pentru susținerea unei implementări eficiente al inițiativelor politice. Este vorba de realizarea și funcționarea unui adevărat parteneriat. Aceasta este esența inițiativei comune în domeniul standardizării. Mulți dintre cei prezenți aici ați participat la acest proces. A fost o colaborare exemplară care a generat și va continua să genereze rezultate. Vorbind de nevoia de adaptare la schimbări, obiectivele și acțiunile inițiativei comune în domeniul standardizării nu ar trebui să se oprească aici. Atât noua echipă a Comisiei Europene, cât și cei care vor conduce politicile europene, ar trebui să le continue. Un alt subiect al agendei de astăzi vizează includerea pieței unice într-un context global. Suntem cu toții de acord că piața unică rămâne principalul instrument de captare a oportunităților globalizării. Standardele sunt active esențiale pentru menținerea și întărirea competitivității companiilor europene pe o piață din ce în ce mai globalizată. În acest context, agrem pe deplin obiectivul Comisiei Europene și al organizațiilor europene de standardizare de a se asigura o sinergie cât mai mare între standardele europene și internaționale și de a promova utilizarea cât mai extinsă a acestora pe plan global. De-a lungul timpului s-a demonstrat că relațiile comerciale sănătoase au fost piatra de temelie pentru o coexistență pașnică și o îmbogățire culturală. Standardizarea ca instrument de bază în activitățile economice îndeplinește un rol major în menținerea unor schimburi comerciale deschise, dinamice și receptive la transformările majore care își pun amprenta asupra economiei. Cred că prin dezbaterile care vor urma se vor identifica soluții care să vină în întâmpinarea actualor provocări și să profite la maxim de oportunitățile oferite. Să nu uităm și faptul că globalizarea aduce cu sine necesitatea unui limbaj comun. Eliminarea în măsură cât mai mare a barierelor tehnice și comerciale. Pentru acest lucru trebuie găsite soluții și vom avea cu toții de câștigat. Sper că această conferință să fie foarte productivă și așteptăm cu nerăbdare să aflăm rezultatele ei. La final, în acest an atât de important pentru țara mea, mă simt onorat că evenimentele standardizării europene au loc la București și vă mulțumesc pentru contribuția dumneavoastră. Vă invit să profitați de timpul pe care îl veți petrece în capitala țării noastre și să explorați ceea ce avem noi de oferit. Vă mulțumesc și sper să reveniți cu plăcere în România. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed, State Secretary.
Sorry, just a moment. I wrote some few thoughts which are quite personal, and if you allow me.
Absolutely, please do.
Okay. Also in Romanian.
Okay.
It's better.
Headset back on.
Vă rog să acceptați câteva considerente de natură strict personală din partea unui neofit în domeniul standardizării. Acest eveniment este o reușită datorită în primul rând eforturilor pe care le-ați depus fiecare dintre dumneavoastră. Și vă mulțumim pentru faptul că lucrați cu noi, împărtășiți din experiența dumneavoastră și găsim împreună cele mai bune soluții. Diversitatea culturilor organizaționale ale celor 51 de țări participante a dat naștere la provocări pe care învățăm să le transformăm în oportunități și apoi în priorități. Fără standarde și fără standardizare nu există viitor în lumea digitală, în lumea noastră și a copiilor noștri. Există doar entropie și soluții aleatorii. Am învățat multe în aceste 6 luni de președinție a României la Consiliul Uniunii Europene, a cărei agendă, iată, se finalizează astăzi cu acest eveniment atât de important și suntem mândri că am reușit să arătăm Europei și chiar lumii întregi, suntem mândri de modul în care ne-am descurcat și de progresele pe care le-am făcut. Nu în ultimul rând, felicitări și mulțumiri colegilor români care au pus o bucățică de suflet pentru ca acest eveniment să fie unul de succes. Vă mulțumesc, oameni minunați, și vă doresc un congres de excepție.
Thank you very much indeed, State Secretary. And I like that phrase you used there, turning challenges into opportunities and then turning those into the changes we need. We're going to discuss all of that through two panels, one on the challenges and opportunities within the single market, and then, as the State Secretary referred to, within that broader global context. But before we move to that, Elżbieta Bieńkowska, the European Commissioner for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs, could not be with us today, but she did want to speak to you, so she sent us this video message. Let's hear what she has to say.
Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I am sorry that I cannot join you today in Bucharest. 3 years ago, I was in Amsterdam to sign and launch the joint initiative on standardization. Your involvement shows commitment to the single market, and I want to thank you for that. So today, with the joint initiative coming to a close, let us take the time to celebrate. Of course, all the actions under the initiative are important, but allow me to highlight 3 achievements that are especially striking. First, to make standardization work at the EU level, public authorities need to be aware of the role standards play in public policy on a national level. And they need to be aware of the important work of national standardization bodies in offering to implement regulation and achieve policy objectives. The initiative has led to much greater awareness and cooperation at national level. I am convinced that this should continue in the future. Second, 2 trillion euros per year of public investment in our economy is spent through public procurement. That is 14% of EU GDP. As you know, I put forward an initiative to increase the impact of public investment through efficient and professional procurement. So I was pleased to see that the joint initiative has shown that referencing standard in public procurement supports the strategic element. It simply makes sense because using standards not only results in lower costs, but also in more efficiency. Finally, as the saying goes, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. We need qualified and well-educated experts in standardization. We need a close match with what our rapidly changing industries are asking for, now and for the future. So under the initiative, a lot of work has been done to address this. For example, with universities promoting standardization in technical and legal studies. Minister, friends, I could have spoken about 14 other achievements made possible through the initiative, but I will stop here. Today's conference is an excellent opportunity to continue our dialogue and exchange views on the priorities for the next year and beyond. I would like to thank you all for your commitment and having done such a great job in making the joint initiative a success. The European standardization system is unique in the world. If the single market is the beating heart of the EU, then standardization is one of the muscles that helps it tick properly. I am sure we will have an interesting and fruitful conference. Thank you very much.
Oscar, ladies and gentlemen. So as I said, we are going to talk first about those challenges and opportunities within the single market and standardization beyond 2020, and then later we will turn to that global context. So I want to discuss with our first panel what those challenges and opportunities are, what this means from a strategic perspective for standardizers, and hopefully feed into the Commission's initiatives on the single market and standardization, and identify future policy priorities to strengthen the role of standards in advancing and deepening the single market. We're going to have a totally interactive format for our panels. I'm going to ask our panelists some questions to get us started, and then, as I said earlier, I will come come amongst you, not just for your questions, but also if you have brief comments to make. There is a lot of expertise in this room, a lot of experience, and we would like to share it together. So let me bring up our speakers, and as I do so, there's a set of steps that side if it's easier for you, Joachim. I'm delighted to welcome Joachim Núñez de Almeida, Director for Single Market Policy, Regulation Implementation in the Directorate General for the Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs in the Commission, better known to most of us as DG GROW. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. Also, Christoph Winterhalter, Vice President for Policy at CEN. Welcome to you, Christoph. Juliana Kilea, General Director of ASRO. And Juliana, I'm sorry, we don't have a nameplate for you, but most people here know you. You've organized all of this. Please do take your seat next to Christoph. Veronika Willems, who is Secretary General of SME United, the Association of Crafts and SMEs in Europe. Henri Guettaz, who is Secretary General of the European Free Trade Association, EFTA. And last but not least, Peter Scherer, Deputy General Secretary of the European Trade Union Confederation, ETUC, or ETUC, depending on how you like to pronounce it. So, let's dive straight in. The Commissioner said at the end of her video message, if the single market is the beating heart of the European Union, standardization is one of its muscles. Can I ask you, and we'll go down the line, Joachim, perhaps I could come to you first, in terms of the challenges ahead for standardizers, for policymakers like yourself, to make sure standardization plays that role to the full. What do you see as the key challenges and the opportunities as well? We tend to focus a lot on challenge, but do you see great opportunities too?
Okay, yeah. I won't start philosophizing on the difference between challenges and opportunities. I see two. I think that we've got a procedural challenge still, and that would be, I would call that one clearly a challenge. The harmonized standard making process is improving, but could still be improved. But there are critical pain points that have to be addressed. I think that there's not yet a clear picture or acceptance of what should be the role of the Commission, what should be the role of the European standardization organizations, what is the density of involvement of each of these actors in the process, and this still needs to be gelled up. Although I believe that this will be solved as much by system design, but also by improved personal relations. I do think that to get the technical committees and the Commission responsible desk officers in a good relationship is key to address the procedural stumbling blocks we still have in the standardization making process. On substance, I think that the EU now has an industrial policy. DG GROW has identified a series of actions, consortia of businesses that are acting on key areas, and I'll spell them out. So we've got now consortia on connected, clean and autonomous vehicles, smart health, low carbon industry, hydrogen technologies and systems, industrial Internet of Things and cybersecurity to make Europe strong in the future. And I think that it would be interesting if the standardization community would seize up this challenge to see how can they contribute to make these industrial policy consortia a success.
Thank you. Come back on that and maybe how they see their role in that a little bit later. But Christoph, from your perspective, so a procedural challenge there and a substance challenge. Would you agree with those challenges? Would you highlight anything else?
I would agree. I would just phrase it a little different. There's technological challenges, like with the digital transformation. I mean, we are moving from a product-centric approach towards a more system-centric approach, which is a different mindset. It's a higher level of complexity. It's a higher level of interoperability across sectors that needs to be achieved through standards, which is a positive thing, because standards are more essential than ever before. But if you connect things to an ecosystem and you do it in a digital way, I mean, then you get new challenges like cybersecurity, what we talked about yesterday. I mean, then you put in artificial intelligence, utilizing the data about those things, then you end up with ethical challenges. All these aspects can be tackled by standardization, but it's kind of a new approach that we have to have in order to tackle these technological challenges. And then we have policy challenges. I mean, the latest interpretation of the Commission on the new legislative framework puts some challenges on us, because it slows down the process of citation, and I mean, we need to work against that. So there is challenges in policy, there's kind of challenges and opportunity from a technological point of view. We are working together to get this fixed, but it's kind of moving one step forward and moving one step backward at the same time. So I mean, we really have to team up to be more efficient, to tackle the kind of the policy challenges in order to really focus on getting the new technology challenges kind of worked on together.
Thank you. We'll come back on how we do that later. And you raise an interesting point, which we also discussed at the Senelec Common Session yesterday, about the degree to which these are similar challenges to the past for standardization, but also new ones, and how different they are. Generated a lot of debate yesterday. I'll be interested to get your views on it. Juliana, from your perspective, how do you see the challenges and the opportunities here?
Well, probably I'm the single voice on the panel from a small standardization body in the European Union. And I would like to go to the basics, even though we talk about challenges of standardization in the digital world that is expecting us, and it's coming very dynamically. I would like to go to basics. Saying that one of the biggest challenge for us, and not only for us, I'm sure for any other standardization representatives in Europe at least, a big challenge is making a statement to all the stakeholders about the relevance of the standardization, about its potential, making stakeholders understand the impact, the role of the standards, and what is it how it is influencing their daily life activities. And our stakeholders is virtually everyone, current but also potential stakeholders.
So very much underlining what the Commissioner was also saying about awareness, that we've come a long way, but you still feel we have more work to do in that area?
Yes, I'm sure. I feel it. I have stakeholders in my country needing to understand the value in figures, in facts. What will be the impact so that they will come easily and participate in standardization? And one of the opportunities that I see is that our system, as well established as it is very flexible. It is actually the flexibility, it is one of its strengths. And because it is flexible, it can be adapted and directed almost towards any topic. And therefore, we in this community, we should guard on this flexibility. We should guard against the system becoming a blind and a rigid one. And therefore, the opportunities go into almost any field of activity.
So for you, whatever we do in the future, maintaining that flexibility, that agility is absolutely key. Perhaps we can come back to that later. But Veronique, representing small and medium-sized companies as you do, how do you see this balance of challenge and opportunity for this community, for the standardization community, and for policymakers more broadly?
Well, I think that indeed the awareness raising is a very important one. One of our key challenges still is participation of SMEs in the standardization process. We've already made progress also with the setting up of small business standards and the support given by the European Commission for the organization. Nevertheless, there is still room for awareness raising, educating, making sure that entrepreneurs during their training already get the importance and the way of standards being developed and applied in their company. So that is a very important one. Why is that very important? We want to have standards which are market relevant. If they're not market relevant, they won't be used. And if you want to have a standard which is market relevant, then participation of SMEs is key, because they are 99.8% of all companies in Europe. Additionally, and that's the topic of the next panel, but also the international level will become more and more important. We have a global economy at the moment. We don't have the single market by itself anymore. And for us, as SME organization at European level, having the European principles for the standardization process and European standards being able to put global standards forward, that will be a key element for the future as well.
And as you say, something we will come back to. And of course, the joint initiative on standardization, that inclusiveness of SMEs and encouraging and building it is one of the central, has been one of the central priorities, will continue to be. Come back later on perhaps how we do that, what some of the the challenges and barriers are. Henri Guettaz, from your perspective, from an EFTA perspective, would you agree with this awareness issue that's being raised in terms of the role of standards broadly before we talk about how they need to respond in the future, or do you see other challenges ahead?
Thank you. Well, before turning to your question, I'd like, on behalf of the EFTA countries that I represent here, that's Norway, Switzerland, Iceland and Liechtenstein, to congratulate and thank ASRO for this fantastic conference, and the Romanian government for your EU presidency. I'd like to say on a personal note that I was here in Bucharest in 1992 already in the context of EFTA. We were holding trade policy seminars ahead of the construction of our new relation, and I was here in a country that was just recovering from the end of the former regime. I was in this building that was still under construction, and I must say I'm impressed by the way that's gone so far and how far you brought it. So congratulations to the Romanian government for this. The EFTA countries are full participant in the system of European standardization. They are sophisticated, industrialized country that needs open market, that are committed to free trade and responsible free trade, meaning the respect of issues like consumer protection, the environment and the like, and the standards are key in realizing these objectives. Our countries, the standardization organizations of our countries are full members of the International Standardization Organization. Our governments support their activities through regular grants and financial support, and the European system of harmonized standards apply to our countries through the European Economic Area Agreement when it comes to 3 of them, and to bilateral agreements when it comes to Switzerland. So we're proud and happy to be fully participant in this system, and I think it's worth reminding at that point that the system of harmonized European standards is a flexible institution that permits the inclusion of countries and economies outside the European Union. When it comes to your question in the future development, well, obviously I believe that the deepening and further development of the internal market must be at the core of the priorities of the next Commission. I think there is nothing like a completed internal market. It's a moving process, it's a moving target, and the technological developments and the capturing in the field of standardization is key to that. We think we should rely on the achievements of the system, of a voluntary harmonized system. I think that needs to be preserved and be the basis for this further development. One last thought on the digitalization and the transformation we see ahead, and again, maybe a personal observation. I attended the sessions yesterday of Senelec, and that reminded me of 10 years ago I was posted in the US and witnessed the financial crisis at the time, the subprime, the securitization crisis. And well, in the financial markets there had been hits and issues. I don't think it's the case here, fortunately. So my sense is the community is ahead of the curve. It's still under control, so to say, of the developments. But what struck me at the time is that actually regulators did not really understand what was actually going on the market, and I suspect that even the management boards didn't really get what their specialists were doing in the divisions. So that's probably something similar when it comes to digitalization of economy. The degree of complexity is such that probably regulators will always be kind of behind the developments. So in order to get this under control, we do need to rely on those who are on the market. I think the role of private standards and private operators is key. I think Europe is fortunate to have this flexible and creative system of interaction between regulators and an organization should keep this going.
Okay, thank you very much. And as you say, that complexity and that speed of change, speed of technological change, speed of, when we talked about cybersecurity yesterday, somebody said, we're talking about new opportunities and new risks, and someone says, it's what we don't know is the key challenge. So one of the questions for the future is how does this system remain responsive to that? So thank you very much for that. But Peter, complete the picture for us from a trade union perspective. When we talk about the role of standards in advancing, deepening the single market, and for your members, what do you see as key here as challenges?
Thank you, Jackie. Does it work?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jackie. I do not see only one key challenge. I see even two key challenges, and one of the two is that we have to raise awareness among our members, and I speak for 43 million workers organized in the European Trade Union Confederation, and we have to raise awareness that standardization is becoming more and more important, and we have to make it more democratic, more transparent, and more participative, so that we can really play a role as societal stakeholder. And at this occasion I can simply say the Commission is making an effort, and we appreciate that we can raise awareness and that we can participate. And if it's not, and I see that against the background of the political development in the last years, in particular in the last years in Europe, we have more and more parties which are, well, let's face it, against Europe, and they want to abolish the European Union and so on, and that they get more and more support is that people have the feeling that it's not enough democratic. And I think this is a very political issue, that we participate in process, and that we participate actively as trade unions, as societal stakeholders all together. And then let's imagine that is really on a very, very good way, and we develop that, and it's becoming more and more accepted. And of course the standards are not directed against the workers, they protect workers. The second challenge is that we keep these good European standards all over the world, yeah, and not undermined by international standards. And that is pretty much of importance, that it's not our good standards will be bypassed by international standards, and that is, I think, a very, very important issue.
And as you said, and something I hope we can talk about that more in this panel, but also when we talk about the global context, that interrelation between national standards, European standards, and international standards, because we talk a lot about alignment and coherence, but how do you reconcile our levels of protection?
And that is the reason why I think the national standards have to fully support the European standards, and not taking advantage of lighter standards on the international level. And in particular in a time where we see less and less multilateral trade agreements, yeah, that all comes now, it has a dynamic which can be directed against good standards, and that is a reason why the national standard organization play a very, very important role. And I know that myself from a European organization, the support of the national members is absolutely vital, and they have to support the European standard, the good standards where people are asked to participate and where it's democratic and transparent.
Thank you, Christoph.
There's good news. The national standardization bodies do exactly this. The foundation of the single market is the principle that any national standard is withdrawn if there's a European standard. There's a clear strategic approach on the national standardization bodies. Primacy of European standards. Don't dare to start the national standardization project if there is European initiatives that can actually tackle this standard. So it's very important, because it is the foundation of our single market that we have this policy, and we live according to the policy, and it is our priority.